pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on this February 25th meeting, starting at 8:30, we do have some changes to the agenda. The sheriff has a meeting, so we're going to move him up after approving the meeting and claims. And right after him, we're going to move number 12, approving the resolution bond purchase agreement. We're going to move that up after the sheriff. And then the rest should be the same. Do you guys have any other changes?
No.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as you
The
stated.
changes?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Agenda is approved. Okay, the minutes, did you guys see any corrections with those? And have you had a chance to look at the claims?
So moved.
I'll second Stan.
Okay, with no further discussion, roll call. Stan?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay? Okay, the motion obviously is approved. And Sheriff, can we go ahead and get started with
Good
you?
morning. Thank you for moving me up a little bit.
Sure.
So I have January fees for you of $8,310.21.
Just out of curiosity, what was training on this one?
That,
1,600.
yeah, so those are reimbursements, Barb,
Oh,
for
for,
the training that's upcoming in June. There's 15 spots available. I've taken 6. And then in order to afford the training, I'm selling out the other 9 spots at $400 a day for a total of $800 for the program for one deputy or police officer.
okay,
And
that's
so
reasonable.
our task force office is going to send 2 people, so they've prepaid. So that's gotta come to you folks.
Okay.
So it's not training that we went to and
Sure.
spent the money, that's coming into the general
Yeah,
fund.
I know you gotta do
Yeah,
that
so
sometimes.
that's what that is.
Okay,
And there's been some of those in the past, and you may see, I just have 1 spot left, so you'll probably see that again someplace
Sure.
down the road here.
okay, cool.
Yep.
I move to approve the sheriff's report.
I'll second it. We'll wait till Stan sits down. Stan, we already had a motion to approve the sheriff's report and a second by me.
Okay.
Do you have any further discussion on that?
No, how many this morning?
Yeah, we don't have any in, they've been either bonded or released on their signature. We booked in 5 since I was here last.
You can.
But there's nobody in this morning, so good or bad, however you wanna look at that, I guess.
Okay.
All right, so roll call, Steve,
Aye.
and myself, aye. All in favor, say
Yeah,
aye.
Stan.
Gotta have that Stan.
Sorry,
You don't have to say all in favor.
Gotta ask Stan.
okay. And I for myself, and so
Sheriff's report has been
the
approved.
report's approved.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for me before I leave? I'd be happy to answer them. Couple of the burglaries, just for your guys' information, a couple of the burglaries that occurred in St. Anne's at city limits and at the Napa store. We are looking at charging the person that's involved in that. Essentially, we got the stolen property back from Napa. We know he is responsible, so we'll get with the county attorney's office on that and clear those 2 cases. He's part of a larger operation that's going on in Hancock County, Polk County. And he's been arrested in this county before for doing the same thing, so.
Are you a local guy or?
No, he living right now over in Hancock County. But when we had him last, he was arrested by the Van Buren County Sheriff's Office in way south. Keosauqua, I think, is the county seat, right on the Missouri border. So he just travels all over and does these burglaries.
I was just curious, how did you,
Hancock County did most of the heavy lifting on the case. They were able to identify him as a suspect, and then we tied him into ours. Due to the camera being on, I don't want to get into too many operational details and investigative techniques, but Hancock County did a lot of the work for us, and we were able to tie him back into ours, so.
Greg, what happens to the people that are incarcerated and when they can't pay their bill?
We put a lien on them, and that's it.
Somebody
So-
said to me the other day, they said, I can't believe you had to pay to be in jail.
Yeah.
I said,
Well-
oh yeah, that went back to when I was on the board even.
Right, and those times are changing, though. Defense attorneys are filing motions that people are not able to pay, and judges are agreeing with those, but if they're found to have the ability to pay, then it's part of their judgment and sentence that they pay the county back for the services we provided them. So, we get some of it, and some of it we don't. Yeah. So,
Kind of like contractual adjustments with the hospital.
right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
I just want to add something real quick. People will say, well, how can these people commit burglaries and just keep getting out and just keep getting out and just keep getting out? Crimes are classified as a violent crime or a non-violent crime. Burglaries are normally classified, as long as no one's present in the house, building, et cetera, as a non-violent crime. So the prison system only has so many beds. And so if somebody goes in, they have to let somebody out. And they start with the non-violent crimes and people who don't have mandatory minimums. For example, I don't know if you were working here then, we had a burglary a number of years ago where a guy was a career burglar. And he burglarized the Legion and another building. And the judge really wanted him to spend a long time. So he gave him 5 years on one, 5 years on the next, and made them consecutive, which a judge never makes them consecutive. Everything's concurrent. So he had 10 years. He was out in 8 months.
Right, Mark's right. Retired Judge Brian McKinley said to me at least 3 times before they go to prison. So,
And they
It's quite a
probably are
process.
aware of that now.
yeah, they know how.
They know they're gonna get so much money and they're gonna be able to live for a while before they get caught, and then they're gonna get caught, and they're gonna do 8, 10, 12 months of easy time, and then they're gonna be out, and then they're gonna go right back to committing burglaries.
Right.
That's their life.
We'll continue to do our part
Yeah.
in the Solo County Attorney's Office, but there's only so much we can do to stop them from doing it in the future, so anyway, thank you guys. All right, have a good day.
Okay, we're moving that number 12 up quick before you, Mark. If you recall, our bonds, we were going to redo them, and we were going to be saving $400,000. And now we have good news. We are going to be saving $721,085. And the interest rate dropped from 3.5, the new rate will be 2.15. And basically, the stock market all changed because of the coronavirus. So, only one good thing, I guess, that came out of that. But we are on a time schedule, that's why we moved this up. Apparently, once we have this filed, we have only an hour to get everything all filed, so Rachel's gonna take care of that for us right away if we go ahead and approve this. Otherwise, you get fined heavily, I guess. So, do I hear a motion? Or do you want more discussion?
so moved. And I will second.
Okay, any more discussion on that? Okay, roll call Stan, Steve,
Aye?
aye for me, and so all in favor? Or do I need to do
You
that?
don't need to do
I
that.
always screw that up. Okay, so this motion has passed. Okay, and I'll quick sign this so Rachel can, is this, do I need to do this too?
Looking for that list.
Okay. And make sure you fill the time in. Okay, county attorney. Looks like you have a few things to talk to us about.
Floodplain ordinance amendment. Mark, you got that ready to go?
Yep, got a local copy, I got a copy in my office.
Okay, so all we need to have then is a motion setting this for a public hearing, because it's a new ordinance. Looking around for a calendar. Let's see any. Here. So, today's the 25th, correct?
Correct.
We get it in the paper by the 28th, that means it's gonna be published on the 3rd? 3rd or 4th?
Third.
So we can-
Thursday, what day?
So we can set it for hearing on March 17th?
So you need a motion for a public hearing for the floodplain ordinance amendment?
Yes, March 17th, 8:45, and I think that's ordinance number. I think it's 52, the last one we did was 51 for the voting districts, so this would be 52. So I just need an ordinance setting a public hearing, or ordinance, motion setting a public hearing, 8:45 on March 17th, 2020, on Mitchell County Ordinance 52, Mitchell County Floodplain Ordinance.
So moved.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Roll call, Steve,
Aye.
Stan,
Aye.
aye. Okay, that motion's passed. And then we were gonna talk about the taxes for McIntyre.
I had talked to Amy after the meeting a couple weeks ago. She said she didn't have any problem with the county abating those, since this was not a revenue generating property for the city of McIntyre. So she said she didn't have any problem as long as you guys agreed to do it.
I have a couple comments on that. Yes, I talked with Amy too, and yeah, she sounds like this is quite common practice. Apparently, just a reminder to everybody else, Harlan Bisbee, their city clerk, he had thought that we had the deed to the property, but we do not. We had actually sold it back to them. They couldn't sell the property. The owner is actually apparently deceased. But they didn't realize they had the deed. For some reason, they've forgotten. I'm okay with abating it, but I guess I want to make it clear to them, since they have the deed, that they're responsible next time around for taxes.
Yeah, and they will be.
Okay, they will be?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is just an abatement of the taxes that are now due. It's not an abatement into the future.
Okay, then I'm okay with that. And I would actually even make that motion to go ahead and abate these of $1,293, as long as they understand they're paying for it in the future. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, roll call, I say aye. Stan?
Aye.
Opposed?
You call Steve.
Okay.
Okay, you say, okay.
No, he said nay.
So I'll be nay.
Okay. Motion has passed with two of us. Do you have anything else for us?
This
Local option.
You got your local option.
This local option sales tax.
That's right below the floodplain.
Sorry, I skipped it. I have so much writing on here.
I've got a lot of answers for you, but what questions do you have for me? Because this is a stand question.
Well, my question is, basically right now, the local option sales tax, if I'm not mistaken, 70% can go for any purpose and 30% has to go to property tax relief. Is that correct?
Any lawful
For any
purpose.
lawful purpose, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the
My
question?
question is, could this go on the ballot this fall, asking that 100% can go for any lawful purpose? And if it did not pass, would then we be giving up the local option sales tax? I mean, basically what I'm asking is, can we just try to change it from the percentages from 70-30 to 100% zero?
Well, the problem is you're asking a question that nobody's ever done before, so who knows what the courts would do with it. I'll just kind of give you a history of how this whole thing works, some options, and then what I think the court would probably do, okay?
Well, let's stop for a second.
Okay.
What if nobody files a motion to go to court?
Well, you can do anything you want then.
Okay,
You know, the problem is, let's say you put it on the ballot,
okay,
and it doesn't pass,
okay.
okay? We've got to go back to the whole history of this thing for it to make any sense in the first place,
All right.
okay? Back in 1999, it went on the ballot, and it said, you know, the imposition of a local sales tax, 30% for property tax relief, 70% for any lawful purpose, which passed, okay? Then, that still doesn't become effective until you pass an ordinance that says, we're enacting this. So back in 1994, there must have been one before this, and they must have changed it, but then back later on in 99, then they passed this ordinance 18, which says we adopt this ordinance on the local option sales tax, okay? Which makes no reference whatsoever on how it's to be spent.
Okay, so,
The ordinance itself does not make any reference on how the money has to be spent. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So, there could be an argument made that all we have to do is amend ordinance 18 and say, we're amending ordinance 18 so that 100% can be spent for any lawful purpose. Oh, just a second. Not listen, okay, they've amended the ordinance, that's the one thing I was gonna say. Our ordinance, when it passed, required 30% for property tax relief. The new code section now requires shall use not less than 50% of the monies received from the qualified attorney's account local or property tax relief. Okay?
Not less than.
50%, and we're at 30%. Well, they've changed the law is what happened.
Sure.
So, I think you would probably get in trouble if you tried to say, we want to change our ordinance, or have a reelection, or put it on the ballot rather, to say 100% for any lawful purpose, because the code says it's gotta be at least 50%.
So technically, we should be changing our ordinance to say that.
Well, our ordinance doesn't make any references to the percentages.
Oh, it doesn't.
No,
It doesn't say that 70-30.
no, but I think it should probably be, well, what went on the ballot said 30-70. Okay, but the new code says at least 50% has to be spent for property tax relief. So I don't think there's any way you could say, we want to change that to 100% for any lawful purpose. I think you'd get in too much trouble. Now, as I was trying to answer this question, I was trying to think to myself though, and maybe you can explain to me a situation, what could money be used for that doesn't fall into both of those categories?
Yeah, I'm curious why you wanted to change it in the first place, Dan.
You see what I'm saying? Because I think money is just money. If you're, you know, if you're using it for this project, the money, you can say, well, we're saving tax money over here.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to think of a project where we could say, oh, that only falls into this, or it only falls into that.
yeah, I mean, that gets to be the, basically, what do we get, 35,000 a month on local option sales tax, Mark? Or Mark, Lowell? Around 35,000 a month?
Probably, I guess I don't have the figures here. It varies
I mean-
from quarter to quarter.
Seems like that was a figure, so, basically, if,
Not, say that again, how much
around 35,000 a month,
for what?
local option sales tax, I mean, is that what we take in a month on local option?
For
Around
the
approximately.
lawful purpose it is.
No, the total amount, I mean, the total amount of local option sales tax,
I think, and it's in the teens for the property tax relief.
No, just, I think he's asking is, how much is the check we get every month from the state, or every quarter?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Probably some months it's 40-some thousand, sometimes it's 50-some thousand, like 55 total.
Okay.
And then it's split up.
so do we divide that into then, part of that money goes here and part of it goes there, or part of it goes in the general fund and part goes to, is that
Yeah,
how?
it's,
Pardon?
yeah, 70% goes in for lawful purpose, 30% goes to property tax relief. And that's given to the treasurer. Or she gets notice of it and I just receive it.
Yeah, and we went through this with that hotel motel tax, okay? In my opinion, and I don't know why the auditor, the state auditor isn't saying something, I don't think that's how that should be handled. I think that has to be a separate account where that money goes into the local option sales. And this is just my opinion, I could be completely wrong. And then, separate expenditures made out of that account. This much money went to this much money went to this much money went to this, because I don't know how we can just say 70% is lawful purposes. Because I don't know what that is. Kind of like, you know, the hotel tax just goes into the general budget, and the code says, hey, a certain percentage has to be used for this. Well, how can you track that and say it was used for that when it's just going into the general account?
I've always thought that should be a little separate too, but just for
Yeah.
helping us decide
Yeah,
what
so
we can use it for.
my opinion, this is my opinion, and I'm not the auditor, I'm not the treasurer, I'm not the state auditor. I think that money should go into a separate account, and then it just shouldn't go 70-30. That money should be able to be tagged and earmarked and followed to show that this is how it's being used. That's just my opinion. And like I said, I have a hard time thinking of any project that I couldn't make a straight face argument falls into both of those categories. Because if it's a lawful purpose, it's a debt that the county has to pay, or a debt or a project, well, if you're paying for it with that money, you don't have to increase taxes, therefore it's property tax relief. I can't think of a single project, and maybe there is one, that wouldn't fall into both categories.
Yeah, I mean, the issue came up, I guess, was brought up some months ago by Jeff Heil again, that, you know, could we be using 100% TIF money in order to pay off the courthouse instead of the 70-30? Which, like you say, then could free up the 30% for other property tax relief. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have to, that's how the issue came up. If you're following.
I'm following, but I'm trying to think. When TIF money, when you borrow for a TIF project, create the debt, You have to specifically say what it's going to pay, what it's going to be used for. So
It
I
has to
think,
be a part of the urban renewal.
I think as it exists right now, you could not do that. I think if you do another TIF project and say we are going to take, there's now an existing debt on the courthouse, and we're gonna use so much TIF money to pay that off, I think you could do that.
Jeff was under a different opinion, if I'm not mistaken, but that's neither here nor there.
Jeff knows more about that than I do, so I would trust his judgment.
I'm not trying to, yeah.
No, but TIF can always be used for existing debt. I don't care if that debt was created specifically for the TIF project or existing debt. That's my understanding. As long as the project was in, that's wrong. It has to be, no.
Has to be in the urban renewal.
Yeah, it has to be a newly created debt, so I'm wrong there.
Let's see, we approved, I mean,
Yes.
basically, we approved the whole courthouse under,
You approved,
The urban
but you
renewal.
approved the whole thing. It was originally approved under there, so I don't know why you can't.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know why you can't, since it was originally approved under that. Yeah, I think you can do that.
Okay,
But didn't you just say that 50% should be used for property taxes?
50% shall be used for property tax relief. Yeah, correct. But let's just say, understand scenario, you use that entire amount of TIF and you pay off the courthouse. All right? Now, there's other projects that aren't in the TIF that you could use that money for, which would reduce people's property taxes, because you wouldn't have to increase the levies to pay for those projects. So that in effect is property tax relief.
and we could use 100% for something else, so like you say, I mean, it says, we
At
must use
least.
at least, but that doesn't mean we can't use 100% of it for something else.
That's correct.
That is correct, okay.
You could use 100% for property, as long as you can say this generates property tax relief. And I would have an awful hard time coming up with a project that doesn't constitute property tax relief. Because you can always make the argument, we did this project, if we wouldn't have had this hotel money, we would have had to increase everybody's taxes. Therefore, that's property tax relief because we did not increase your taxes. Didn't increase your levies. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Kind of. Yeah, well, I'm paying $1,800 a year right now. If this new project goes in, I'm gonna be paying $2,000. But instead of increasing my tax, you use this hotel and motel tax, so my taxes stayed the same. That's property tax relief for me. And I think I can make a straight face argument that any project you want to do is property tax relief. Because you're moving money from one account to the other. Makes sense, kind of, maybe a little.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else for me?
I don't think so.
And just, that procurement policy did get passed, correct? Okay. Throw some of this. No, I got it. You just quit bringing it over. All right, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Okay, Rich. County engineer.
Morning.
Mine.
Morning, Engineer Broom.
Good morning. Not much to report this week. I did submit that wind farm project, or the dollars to wind farm people. They're reviewing the dollars that I submitted, so I haven't heard anything back from those people yet on what that cost is, or whether they're gonna approve it or not. Our radio tracking system's going in this week, which will be nice to be able to, kind of understand where our equipment's at when it comes time to this spring pothole season and whatnot, so that'll help us document some of that stuff too. But other than that, I know I've got some guys out this morning, they're out doing some cold patching on some potholes, just to kind of fill in some things while the weather's a touch warm. But other than that, just kind of catching up in the shop on repairs and whatnot. And so, you guys have any questions on anything?
I don't.
No, but I'm
No.
glad to hear the tracking system is going in.
Yeah, we were waiting on a little, they had an updated computer system, so instead of getting the old version, we got the new version, so.
I had some people tell me that the road grader didn't go down their road only 3 times last summer, and I
And,
more or less said, no, that ain't the case.
and it will be telling us, and if we didn't, at least we'll know that, and we'll be able to figure out.
I brought this to their attention that we will have a tracking device on there that will tell us for sure how many times they
And it's not to be Big Brother, it's for situations such as that, and if it does happen, did we forget, or what do we gotta do different? in
Yeah,
order to
you can
maintain
stick up
it?
on, or you can,
We can look at maybe
do we have too
where we're
much
spending
work
more
for you to
time.
do?
Yeah, maybe we're spending more time in one location than others, and I used it last week when the snow came in Worth County, we had some complaints over, the hard surfaces weren't getting covered early enough. Well, we found out that the driver was operating one road more frequently than the rest of them before he hit them, so it's a nice tool that we can go back and change and get that stuff figured out, so, that is what it is, so, but that's getting done. We're working with Casey a little bit on some networking things, so we can have that up and running hopefully this week.
Okay.
And just, you guys have already gotten a few phone calls prepared for the mud. There were some people hauling manure this weekend when it was warm and pushed up some mud on some roads too, so
Yeah.
it's just gonna be another one of those years, I think.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to the next one, I think.
Okay, thank you kindly.
Okay, Betty McCarthy is here today with us for considering the Mitchell County Hospital's request. So
I'm waiting to sit in that nice chair.
we're
warmed up.
inviting you right up there.
My goodness. Well, I'll tell you, we've been here a couple of times, and you were waiting to hear what our final thing would be. And at first we came and we were asking for half of the cost. We didn't have a cost, and Stan asked us to bring back a quote or a bid, which we did, and then you asked what the city was gonna give, so we've been back and forth. Anyway, the low bid was, we got just 2 bids, and the low bid was $64,800. Now, we added to that, because I'll tell you, we started on the derelict building grant, and we thought we would really, complete that, but I was kind of out of the loop on that, or I could have written it like you wrote yours, Stan, and you did an excellent job. I tell you, I hope the county gets that, because you
I went
covered
over it
every
too.
base.
Thank you.
And I got to thinking about it. I guess we don't have anybody that writes grants at the hospital first. I mean, they all have jobs that are full-time jobs all the time. So what happened was, we talked to the city council, and our main problem was the building itself. In order for us to apply for the derelict building grant, the city had to own the building. And we already had paid for everything. And we had agreed, we had a letter back in 2016, I believe, when we started renting some property from the daycare at $1,000 a month for office space. And we said when they sold it, now this is the strange part. I mean, the city did not own the daycare. The daycare was owned by the daycare corporation or whatever themselves. So anyway, we said we would like to buy it, and they didn't have to put it out for bids. We would buy the land only at the assessed value, which was $115,000. Well, when they moved, they needed the money to pay off of their USDA grant, or loan. They needed that plus more money, and the city provided that. So they had no money to demolish the daycare. Well, we thought we were gonna get it without the daycare. So what happened, then we went to the city, and because they had been pouring money into that daycare, and we talked to them about, that's where the derelict building grant came up, you know, and of course we had, you know, we had them come up here, we had Flag come up here, and of course then, in the midst of everything, I didn't realize that the city wasn't going to, we had to be careful about the property, how it was gonna be transferred back. The city was gonna have to own the property in order to apply for the derelict building grant. Well, then, they were gonna have to put it out for bids, you know? When, I mean, the land itself, the whole thing was one, it was all one parcel. They were gonna have to put it out for bids. Well, we already had paid for it. So we hired an attorney to look into that, on how that could happen, you know, because the city said they wouldn't, you know, their attorney wouldn't look at that. And so we hired the Davis Brown law firm. And then we started writing the grant. And I didn't realize, but Kathy Penny has never written the grants or anything. She's never written any grants. And they said, get Planscape. Well, I was out of the loop on that. I didn't know about it, but I got into it about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Shelley had to go to Arizona, or she went on vacation first. She asked me if I would be the point person for Planscape. Well, that's when we found out all about, you know, that Flag, I called, that was his last day in the office. It got transferred over to Jennifer Wright. And then I called Kathy Showalter at Planscape, and we got to thinking about Jennifer Wright. Then she called her, and we had to have all of the tracking of all the asbestos removal and everything. That's when I got involved. Found out that at the time that they removed all the asbestos, it was owned by Don Burns. And thank you, Stan, for telling me where Don Burns worked, because I lost all track of them. And it was bought by McIntyre Feed and Grain, while Don Burns doing business as. So, anyway, I got a hold of him, because in order to write that grant, we had to have proof of all the asbestos removal. Well, he had absolutely no records left of that, because it was done in 1999. So I contacted, well, there was 100 square foot removed in 2019. It was in the entryway. Why that wasn't removed before, I don't know. We could track the records of that. I got those from Jeff Burgle. He told me, and so we have only that. Well, in order to get the derelict building grant, we had to have proof of all the other. The DNR in Des Moines only keeps records for 10 years. They have no proof. Mike Cervantes said, well, try Mason City. They only keep them back to 2014. So we had no records of that, and all that Jerry Dunley at a city council meeting said, you know, I think that I was on the daycare board, and I think that cost $60,000 then. We had nothing for the file, and we were gonna have to prove all of that, you know, and when I looked at all the tracking you did, and so that's how, well, we finally decided, maybe, and we didn't have any idea, Davis Brown had not come up with any way that we could get the building back, I mean, not the building, but the land back, because we'd already paid for it, you know. So we decided we had to abandon the grant. Well, up till then, we had about $5,000 in costs between Planscape and Davis Brown. So, Barb, you want to know how we came up with, I had an email from you, and we came up with the total cost of $69,800, because what happened was, the low bid was $64,800. We added the $5,000 of expenses we had, which made it $69,800. And we divided that. Shelley and I talked, and I knew that, I had heard that, I think Lowell thought maybe it'd be a good idea if we all went thirds. And, you know, I said to Shelley, I think maybe, you know, that might be the selling point. And so I thank you all, because we went to the city council, and we talked about it, and they have nothing but positive things to say because of the economic factor. We track all the patients, and the new patients you would not believe, from out of the county. And when they come, and it's the St. Andrew Clinic, the Riceville Clinic, or ours, and it's because they can get in the same day. And when they come here, they're gonna spend money maybe for gas, or eating somewhere, or do some shopping, you know. So, anyway, the mayor brought that up, and it's true, you know. When people come, they probably would at least eat somewhere and maybe buy gas. But anyway, so we added that in, and so it came to 69,800, and we divided it by thirds, and it came up to 23,290. And so we just, you know, I think it was it was a little bit under that, $70 under or whatever, but it was 23,290. The city council approved the 23,290. The hospital will pay their share of 23,290, and that's what we would like to ask you for. And when we first came, I think after we got the price, it was gonna be 32,400. We were gonna just split it 2 ways. And so look at the money the decrease. But you know, I was looking because Steve, I remember you saying one time that, well, we had a positive balance and so on. You know, we have money at the end of the year. A little hospital is a little different than county. And we just went through our budget year, and I was just going to share with you, oh, by the way, on tracking of patients, last month we had 150 new patients from out of the, yeah. Anyway, we just went through, and so we keep track of all the capital expenditures that we know we're gonna be needing or we're projecting for even up to year 2023. But for 2021, which is this coming budget year, our capital projects are going to cost $1,350,098. You know, I was looking at, and that doesn't include Epic. And for you, Epic is electronic health records. And we are looking at going online when Mercy does with those. And, you know, I didn't realize the importance of those nationwide. My son just broke his 7 ribs, and he lives in Englewood, Colorado. And this is what was interesting. His primary doctor is in Denver, and when they called the ambulance, it was an Englewood ambulance, and it couldn't go outside of Englewood, so that he had to go to the Swedish hospital. He couldn't go to his primary, you know. So then, he was telling me all about Epic, and I didn't realize that Epic, you know, then you can access your records anywhere in the United States that has Epic, and Epic is the premier. So I see how important that is, you know. But we're looking at a $2 million expense, you know, and we'd be looking at that so much a year. Then we have the parking problem, and it is a big problem. And so we've been working with our Savior's Lutheran Church, and I think maybe we brought this up before, but Shelley has been working, Dr. Nastrom is a member of that church, and I don't know if he's on the board, but he's been working with her and the board, and they came up with a price. They're going to do concrete paving. That is, it has to be approved by the congregation, but the cost initially, they said, would be our share. It would be the north and the east, because we would be parking our MRI truck over there, and that's gonna take an extra heavy concrete. Because we don't have, now that we built onto the OR, we don't have a place there to put it. So anyway, they first came up with our share, $232,000. And that would, they're planning on doing it this year if it gets approved by the, you know, by their church, their board. And then we would have to pay that this year, I mean the cash, this year, as soon as it's done. We also have to get a new CT machine, and that's a $600,000, you know, machine. And I was looking through all this, and you know, some of the future expenses, I look at the at what Lowell has for accounting in his office and what the county has to have. And I look at patient financial services at the hospital, all the billings. It's a whole department with a lot of people in it. Then I look at health information management, and that's a whole department with a lot of people. So we have 161 full-time employees. And then we have part-time employees too. So actually, you know, it isn't a matter of just having enough money to pay for 3 to 6 months ahead. So anyway, I could go into much, much detail. I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. I thought, oh my gosh, all this. I have learned so much and I keep learning. And healthcare is really something. I looked at the contractual adjustments. And so far this year, between Medicare, Medicaid, and commercial insurance, the contractual adjustments so far this year, and that's 7 months, $13,638,323. That's the part of billings that we don't get paid. So you can see, you know. And so anyway, we have cash on hand, days of cash in hand, 165 days. Our accounts receivable, you know, it's about 48 days turnaround. I mean, they're doing a good job in getting the accounts receivable out. So I just thought I would share, if there are any other things that you would like to hear about. I could just talk for an hour, but I'm not going to, because I really came asking, you know, if you would consider that, and I hope that you would, because I think, you know, several people said, and the mayor said, Valent, when they asked him why they came to Mitchell County, to Osage, he said the first thing was because they had a good medical facility.
That is important.
So, you know, and I think when I look at the whole county, and St. Ansgar has so much to offer, and, you know, I look at Grain Millers, huge, and what they've done for the hospital, you know, and I asked Steve Eliasson, the CEO there, what was your main, you know, he said the hospital, you know.
Betty, we're well aware of how important the hospital is to us. At this time, you're not going to be happy with me, but I am voting no. I've had several people come up to me, and they're not happy about us using our money towards this. My particular reason is we don't know if we're going to get that grant. We have our own property that we have to figure out how we're going to pay.
I understand that.
So I'm concerned about that. I know someone from the city suggested to me, they said they didn't know if you would qualify for it, but to try for that revolving loan fund. Economic development, if you put a building on there, you would probably qualify for something from there.
We are keeping the parking lot.
You are gonna, for sure.
Because we need to keep that parking lot for at least 5 years. And a building that we were putting, that we would plan
I know
on
you talked about
eventually
maybe.
would have to be a hospital related services that would be there to qualify for reimbursements from Medicare, from Medicaid, from, you know. So I'm very disappointed, Barb. I really
Yeah,
am.
I'm sure you are.
Because, well, I really am.
Steve, do you have an opinion?
I got my ears twisted too, Betty, so I'm probably gonna say no too.
Well, that's a shame, you know, it really is. Because we don't have the additional resources that we could even get into, like any TIF or local option sales tax or anything. We have just the revenues that we generate there and the taxes, you know. So, I'm very disappointed. But, how about you? I mean, not that one person's gonna swing it.
No. I guess the thing that I would look at is, since I've been on this board, we have basically, the county has contributed close to $750,000 to different projects here in Osage. And what we have basically also done is we've ignored are little towns. You know, you take Mitchell, for instance, they have no tax base. I mean, they got 2 commercial buildings in the town of Mitchell is all they have, and you know, that doesn't generate much money. And basically, the last few years, when they go to try to hard surface their roads, they have to deal with, I believe it is Heartland Asphalt Company, and see if Heartland will carry them on a long-term note where they pay 6% interest or whatever the case may be, just in order to, because they, like I say, they don't even have the money to, and we have, basically as a Board of Supervisors, we've done a little bit for Orchard. I'm not even sure if we've done anything for McIntyre or Carpenter, but
I was told you have for McIntyre, something. Didn't you tell me something?
well, the main road going through, but I mean, of course, it is really a county road though, too. I mean,
Yeah.
but basically, we haven't done much for these little towns. And like I say, Osage really does have a big tax base. I mean, commercial, industrial tax base. And,
Well, we aren't gonna raise taxes.
no, but I mean, but the city of Osage can step up to the plate and help on some of these things too.
Well,
Is
it's-
what I'm saying,
yeah.
Betty.
I understand, but it's
because-
not just, that is not just a City of Osage hospital.
I understand
You
that.
know, it is a Mitchell County Regional Health
I
Center.
understand that, and we were more than glad to
Yeah.
donate money to help find doctors and so on, and if that's gonna be the case again, I would be more than glad to vote yes on that. I mean, so I'm,
Okay.
you know,
You know, I would just like to ask, you said a few people had bent your ear, and you said a few people. You know, I never listened to just a few people. I mean, a few people can always be unhappy about things, you know, but, you know, you really are on the
No,
board
I asked
for
more
generally
people, though.
to, you know.
When
to,
that happened, I asked more people.
You know, but I mean.
Because
you know,
I don't, I'm very careful about paying attention to just the people that
Sure.
maybe are complaining, because sometimes they tend to be the louder voice. But, so I did ask further and was not giving positive feedback.
Well, if there's something that the hospital needs to hear, I think they should hear it, you know, so.
They didn't have complaints, other than they knew that you were doing pretty well financially right now. And so and I understand what you're saying. Yes, you have all these other things you can buy, but we also have all these other things we can pay for.
Money is a problem for all organizations. Not
I-
some.
You know, Steve, I sat in your seat for 24 years, so I understand. You know, I understand.
But we probably better get moving on.
But
I'm sorry,
anyway.
Betty.
I'm sorry about that, but thank you.
thanks for coming, Betty.
Yeah. Okay, Tony and I are gonna talk a little bit about the upcoming census. Do you wanna start, Tony, and then I'll add a couple comments?
Sure. Just kind of wanting to have a coordinated effort to encourage people to participate fully in the upcoming census. There's been a fair amount of concern, I think, on, what's the best term, on confidentiality of information, that type of thing. And I would just like to encourage everybody, if you have any concerns or any questions on anyone approaching your property, being on your property, to consult the website that the census.gov has put out for ways that you can confirm that the people who are there are who they say they are, and to make sure that you are not subject to anything that could be nefarious at all. They take it very seriously, and but the fact is, the importance of the census can't be overemphasized. We're going to be using these numbers for the next 10 years to help allocate federal funds, and that's on many different levels. Now, I've never dealt with it on the county level, but at the city level, and where it's much more impactful. Without an accurate count, you can greatly hinder your ability to work with the federal government on different programs.
Over the next 10 years, I can guarantee at least one of the communities in the county are going to be needing help with the water sewer issue. And so you're dealing with CDBG grants to help and pay for that. It's very dependent on your demographic income data that comes from. And this is when that gets established. It's right now. So I just want to encourage people to participate fully with the census coming up, because it will set a level of participation from the feds for the next 10 years. And so we really need an accurate count. I've had personal examples in 2 of the counties that I worked in. Some of the cities had numbers that were so far out of whack, no one believed them, but you had to work with them. That's all you had. So there is no question. There's no way of getting around it. There's no workaround. So you're stuck. So we really need to encourage everybody to participate honestly and fully with the census, with their assurance that any information that's there is not shared anyplace else. I've never seen any instance where they broke that promise, it's because it's by law that they cannot share that information with anyone else, so.
It's all the more important now because the federal government is it looks like in their 2021 budget that they will be reducing federal contribution to state things such as workforce development and social services and all those things. And ironically, the people that are probably most nervous and embarrassed to give the amounts of people in their home, they're actually the ones that are going to be affected most. And I just got this in the mail yesterday, that for every 1% undercount in the U.S. Census, Iowa loses $53 million in federal funds. That's huge.
It really
I
can't be
suspect
overemphasized.
Mitchell County's population actually is higher than what they're claiming.
Yeah.
Just because people haven't answered the door, or they'll say there's 2 people here when there's 10, that kind of thing. So Tony, were you gonna go ahead and give to Casey like the web link and stuff, that we can put it on our site
Sure.
and on the economic development?
Yeah, we can put it on there, but it's very easy, just census.gov. And they have a question and answer section on there. We had talked about maybe putting something together, but honestly, the work that the Census Department itself has put together is top notch. And they answer every question, and they try to provide every assurance to people, and the methods by which they can verify that the people who are there are who they say they are. They have worked really, really hard to protect people's confidentiality and their information. So I want to emphasize to go to their site, because I want to force everyone to go there simply because there's no question that the advice is valid and that everything they need to know is on that website. And so rather than try to come up with any third party supporting or anything like that, let's go to the source. That way there's no question that it's accurate. So that's what I really like to force. But yeah, I can get with Casey.
Yeah, and I think I'll give him that sentence just because that really stresses. 1% undercut is $53 million.
It's a lot of money.
Just for Iowa?
It's a lot of money.
Yikes. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Okay, conservation, consideration of purchasing pickups for your department, Adam.
Hello. So we've got some vehicle maintenance issues and things like that coming up that we're hoping would wait a while. I got a sheet for you guys here that just tells you what vehicles we've got, how old they are, and what's kind of going wrong with them currently.
Thank you.
So we're a little bit over on our repairs for the year, and that's before these repairs. So we've got about 5,000 where we need to go over to get things up to speed. Potentially, if we complete all these repairs, and we're already 2,500 over in that line item, which isn't a huge thing, but if you bump it here, bump it there, it starts to affect some stuff. We've got some contracts with Riverside Park. Some of our other budgeted money will now get hit if we don't do something. We had on our agenda for equipment to replace a truck in July, to get rid of that 99 Dodge. To get rid of that this July, that was kind of our plan going forward. Since then, the transmission has started to slip pretty bad in that 2004 Chevy. So we've got two vehicles that are kind of nickel and diming. It doesn't make sense to put more and more into them if they need to be replaced anyway, so.
The Dodge and the Silverado.
Yeah, yep, those two need to go. And then the next year possibly the 04 Ford 250. We'll wait and see on that one if it can make it. We try to make these things last as long as we can, but we are kind of hard on them. A lot of gravel, a lot of heavy pulling, things like that, so. Our board discussed it and said to come to you guys and ask if it would be okay to amend to purchase a vehicle. Just said, talk it over with you guys, get one, get two. We gotta get two done, so does it make sense to just do two at one time and then not do one in July? It's essentially the same money. It just depends when you spend it. So kind of leaving that decision up to you guys. I've got numbers for some new trucks on the state bid. Your typical truck new that we're looking at is $47,000, but with the state bid, you're down to like $28,000 for a heavy-duty truck with a hauling system on it, a bigger engine than your standard pickup, so 3/4 tons are typically what we need, so we can pull skid loader, mini excavator, wood chippers, all the equipment that we've got. So that's kind of what you're looking at for new. I did some research on used. One board member we had wanted to know the price of some used vehicles. The best one we found was a 2008 for $17,000 with 100,000 miles on it. When you start looking at used, you're looking at either high miles or maybe not having all the features you want. If we keep looking in that realm, we could find something to get us by. I don't know how the finances are, but if you're going to spend $20,000 to get a used vehicle, essentially, when you can use a state bid option and buy a new one for $27,000, that's what most of our board members were in favor of.
Is that the state surplus? Is that the same thing?
No. So there's a state bid where all the dealerships go in for public entities. State entities can purchase from at a government fleet rate. Then there's a DOT contract site where certain dealerships spend or produce contracts with them, and we can utilize those as a public entity as well. And then there's a DOT auction. The next one would be in May 9th, where you can go get equipment that the state has rolled over, which is used, varying qualities or whatever. We have that 2004 Silverado was bought through that originally, so we bought it for like $3,000, and now they're trying, if we keep it running, we'll be putting.
When did you get that? Like, how many years did you get out of that?
Over 10 years since we got it,
but now it's starting.
now it's not really worth putting in $1,500 into a $3,000 vehicle,
No.
in my opinion. But, so if we can amend, we could do that. The other thing I would say is that we have some equipment to sell that will go back into the general fund. All that would go on bids, but we've got an ATV that is obsolete. We've got a tractor that's obsolete. These two trucks could be sold. And there's also a snow groomer that just lost a clutch in it that will be sold as well. So all that money will come back in to the
Well, that
general
would
fund
help.
at some
We
point.
could
But
get rid of some of that.
it's nothing that can be done immediately. So if we order trucks today, you can get them in 6 weeks, which gets us into April, hopefully when things are picking up.
And what did you think you would have to pay for that 2008 one? Or were you thinking you'd rather go the other route?
I think most of our board would rather buy a new one rather than spend, basically you're saving yourself $8,000 and you've got 100,000 miles on the vehicle already.
If that's all you're saving, I understand that.
Yeah, and if a person kept looking, you might find some better deals too. That's what they prefer, so. Just wanted to get your feedback. The ball's kind of in your court. We'll do
So
what
how
you
much
say.
would you want it amended?
If we did 2 trucks, we wouldn't have to spend all our money next year, but it's essentially $30,000 for each truck if you buy new. And we're gonna need them regardless of when, so, from our standpoint, it's like, get them, use them this spring, don't have breakdowns and downtime, and throw good money after bad. We're gonna have to limp one of these along if we just get one, which is, it's doable if there's not money out there right now or whatever, but we're gonna buy a new one in July anyhow, so. It's essentially an advance on one truck and then a gift on the other, if you look at it that way. That's what we're asking for.
I know it's an issue when things go to pot, bang, there it is. But, sometimes budgeting things in a little bit ahead of time helps out. Stan, what's your comment?
Well, I think what Adam explained was that they don't try to budget ahead thinking that, how do I want to put it, I mean, they try to utilize it up until the very last day that they can. I mean, you can have departments that would be budgeting for a new truck at 130,000 miles. You know, you can start to justify, well, we're gonna have expense repairs and that, it's cheaper to, but what I'm seeing with county conservation is they basically run it until it can't run anymore, which they're getting the full use out of the vehicle. And I would have no problem with, come May, to amend the budget for 2 new trucks.
I would be more comfortable with doing one and you working at getting a fund set aside in your budget for another one.
Can I say something more?
Yes.
I know we've done this in the past, and depending when if you could make it closer to the end of the fiscal year, it may be possible you could pay part of it in this fiscal year, the other half after July 1st.
That's true too. You never know where all the other line items are gonna come out until you get down to June.
True.
And so, I mean, I can commit that we're gonna put as much toward it as we can afford, but that doesn't give you guys a number to count on today either. So, I understand that.
Is it possible to get away with one, limp with the other,
We can, like I said,
and
we
then
plan
next
to,
year try and budget for a new truck?
it's kinda in next year's budget. In July, we can do it. The other thing I would ask is that if one of the companies that we're working with says you can hold the bill till July, would you guys be comfortable with that? Just so we get the use of the vehicle now, so we pay for one amended out of this budget, and the other one would still come out of next year's budget. That way I don't
I
have
would
to
be
order
okay
two
with
and go
that.
down and pick it up twice, I can have
Right.
the use of it
I would be okay
now.
with that.
And we would still allocate whatever we get off the sale of our other equipment and any money left, you know,
Sure.
unspent.
The
We
price
always
of
have
scrap
5.
isn't worth very much.
What's that?
The price of scrap isn't worth much.
On that, yeah, I would estimate we might bring in 10,000 on some of the sales. The snow groomer, I just looked at one of those, they're a collector thing, sells for about 7,000. It's a John Deere tractor that's an old 820, so you might get 3,000-4,000 on that. So, the other ones are basically scrap, so hundreds of dollars. So I don't know, I'm not gonna commit a firm number, but we'll cycle it back over to these guys.
Did you want to make a motion?
I don't need an answer on the second one this second if you're worried about it, but it's just waiting to pay the bill is all it is, and I don't know if they'll do that for sure or not. But
Well, try to get the one, and then next year's budget will pay for the second. If you are able to get the selling dealer to agree to that. Stan, what's your thought? You're just sitting there quietly, say something.
Well, again, I hate to see a lot of money go into repairs on equipment that really isn't going to last very long. And I mean,
We're not asking to repair, I'm saying
No, I'd just as soon see that,
He would be
Uh,
getting 2
get-
trucks. We'll try and budget one this. and then
Amend for this
The
year.
second one would be for
I'd
next
just
year.
assume that he amends for both this year, and like you say, that next year's budget, we can,
What's easier for you, I don't know.
If you're doing one, the other. Whatever the amount is.
Yeah,
And then if we did do both now, though, that would still come out of your budget for next year, or what are you thinking?
well, you'd have to amend that, you could amend that budget down essentially if you wanted to, or, I don't know how you do that. Hopefully you'd
I
hold the bill
guess
and
I'd
we could
rather
just pay
stick
it.
with what we said originally, that we would amend it for the one, and then that second one.
You'd still be able to get 2.
But try
you
to,
could-
yeah, go ahead if they'll let you do that.
Okay. I'll communicate back with Lowell here and we'll
Okay.
see what they're willing to do to work with us.
Okay.
So we have to have motions to do that.
Okay, well, I'll make the motion that, how do I say that, that we amend for the first one, you go ahead and get the 2, and hopefully they'll let you pay for the second one in July.
If they will not, I'll just get the one, so, for now.
How about
Or
I?
you can come back to us.
How about I make that motion because you're the chair and then Stanley can second it?
I was told that I could make a motion.
Okay, then I'll second your motion.
Okay. Roll call. Barb, aye. Steve?
Aye?
Now, do I have to do all in favor?
got it.
No.
I
you
just
gotta-
ask.
You have to ask Stan
Stan.
for his vote.
Okay, Stan.
nay,
Okay. Motion is approved with 2 of us.
All right. Thank you guys, and I'll be in touch with how that comes out.
Yeah, hopefully you can do it
and I
that
wanna
way.
note that I'm not against the one truck.
I think we all understand, so.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for
Alright.
your help there. We haven't done that ask before. Usually it works out a little better, but appreciate your support there. Thank you.
Okay, our fireworks permits. We've got,
You got 2 of them.
yeah.
One for Nathan's Eye for February 26th, and the second one is for the Flashing Thunder Mitchell County Booster Club, not till July 3rd.
Well, they're finally on time.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
I remember the day when we had to have a special meeting on a Saturday because they forgot, so
And-
moved.
Seconded.
All right. And I'm for that too, so roll call. Stan?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye?
And I say aye, so we passed that. And Charlie, and do you want Larry up here? Do you?
No,
for-
but-
Discuss veterans van.
I just don't want you getting excited, I'm not asking you for money today. But there's few of us veterans in the county are looking into the possibility of getting our own van to shuttle us to Minneapolis VA Hospital, Des Moines Hospital, and Mason City Clinic. And I've talked to city council about it already, and the mayor and one of his council members have come up with a few ideas already. I've talked to Josh Burns, and they have some money, and he's gonna meet with his board Thursday night. They have some money set aside for projects like this. So I'm not asking you for any money, but I'd like you to consider it down the road if we could possibly get one, either our own through the county or through the DAV. And I've had a businessman yesterday said a lot of the businesses would probably donate for money towards a van for our veterans. That's because we care for our veterans. And personally, I've had to 3 times take somebody, a veteran, to Minneapolis VA. I drove myself, didn't charge them anything. I know there's one member here that's taking them over to Mason City to catch a shuttle to go to Des Moines and then have to go back again later in the afternoon and pick them up and take them back home. So anyway, if you have any questions, and I think Barb, you said you did some investigating.
I
right?
have started, and I could not come across any bigger grants or anything in the state or federally. I tried. But I would suggest that you apply to shop on state
Yes,
and the casino
yes.
and
Got those written down.
the foundation for the enhancement of Mitchell County, which is FEMC. I would try them too. And when if you have to fill out an application, I would try to find out as many as you can that, like you mentioned, you took 3 times somebody to the city, as many as you know of that are having to travel out of town for medical
Bless you.
concerns. If you
So
could
I know Stan even does.
get that kind of statistic in there. And then meanwhile, I have a couple of counties that have done something towards it, and so I'll do more research on that in the meantime.
Okay. And Tony said he's already found out some things, gonna do a little more investigating for us. So
Yeah,
we're just trying, if it works, fine, if it doesn't, fine too. It's just, it's something to help the vets out.
yeah, hopefully we can come up with something between all of us, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, I believe this is your Stan, Globe Gazette Progress Edition.
Yeah, a couple,
What's that
3
about?
weeks ago, I got an email from the Globe Gazette explaining that on the 8th of March, they're gonna have this progress edition for the whole North Iowa area. And they requested that I submit no more than a 400-word piece on what was happening here in basically Mitchell County and so on. And I believe Superintendent of Schools, Schwanen, also submitted a piece, if I'm not mistaken. In any event, I thought it would be a good promotional thing, that if we could buy some additional copies of this promotion, of this Progress Edition. I was gonna ask that we spend $50 to get 100 copies. I contacted the Globe and they said they'd donate them. So I don't have to ask for any money to, so in any event, on the 9th here, we should be getting 100 copies of this Progress Edition that we can use for promoting.
Have you already sent something in?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Did you sign your name to that, or how did you do
Yep.
that? Okay,
Yep.
okay, so noted.
Can I add one little thing about it? This is gonna be a change this year from this edition, the way I understand it, is going to be changed from former editions. They used to just do an edition for Mitchell County. This will be for the whole area, and it will go in the press, it will be in the Globe, and it'll be in the Fort City paper. So it'll cover the whole North Iowa area.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have meetings attended. I'll go ahead and start. I had a home health meeting in St. Ansgar. Laura Huseman has agreed now to be our administrator full-time, and for anyone who has questioned her qualifications, I assure you she is qualified legally. Census is at 85. We hired a nurse, Tracy Adams, from the Riceville area. She was the former director of nursing at the Ostrander Nursing Home. And the person we were going to hire was not able to commit to our hours. Tracy will start at 20 hours and go up as our census increases. And we thought of other areas that we could be using her expertise too. Performance improvement is much improved. Amy Miller of Prairie Ridge asked our help, as she has been coming to other committees I've been on, to see what we should be doing for substance abuse in our area. She's having people fill out a survey. I already gave her a list of names, those in the medical community and teachers, etc. And new immunization refrigerator was ordered, as the old one only worked some of the time. They got the emergency preparedness grant, and we'll be doing some teaching with Chris Olson and Jessica Kettleson in the schools on how to apply tourniquets in case of profuse bleeding, such as in a school shooting. If you can think of that. I did receive a letter from our mental health advocate for Mitchell County, and I'll explain more next week rather than double up on talking, because I need to bring it up at our council, or our county social service meeting that I have this week, so I'll tell you more about that next week.
Okay, my turn. Okay, I had a ballot meeting last Friday morning. We are going to have a meeting tomorrow, discussed tomorrow in Mason City with the DNR at 10 o'clock. They're going to give the history in the plant and update on their compliance plan, and one on the new compliance plan. And they're going to ask if the NOBs are, if our NOBs are final, or our big offense, and how out of compliant are we with them? And that's the letter that Barb signed a little bit ago that we're taking with us to that DNR meeting. Also discuss that POP is going to fill the new line that they put in from the plant, and they're going to pressurize it. Moving on, I had a governance board meeting, FMC DCAT. The usual, approve the agenda, the minutes. We reviewed expenditure spreadsheets and stated how much money is being spent down and what is left and what must be used up by June end. We reviewed the first and second quarter FMC contract reports. Mentoring contract updates, and we had an action on that, approved that. Discussed AmeriCorps member topics and ideas, and that was B for Floyd, Mitchell, and Chickasaw. And then we had train the trainers, and there was a discussion, and we passed, we had action and passed. And we'll have training, motivational training in June. For Todd Roberts will be the trainers. Also discussed was upcoming events, and in Des Moines there'll be some CPPC statewide meetings. Then last night we had FMC Early Childhood of Iowa. Called to order, reviewed the agenda, approved the last month's meeting. Did the financial report for the current period. Gloria Carr discussed that. That was approved. Fiscal agent contract. It's going to be the same as last year with no changes. Motion carried. Passed. Provider reports. Sue Loken, she gave reports on Learning Connection and Lisa, which I don't know her last name, with Head Start, and Melissa from Head Start. They gave a report, and then Amanda from LSI. She's taking over for Nancy Bean Blossom. LSI is Lutheran Services, and she discussed the 131 children served. Terry from Child Care Services Referral, she gave a report, having meetings with 4 providers. They also discussed that they provide baby monitors for checking heartbeats and oxygen usage levels. We did board member paperwork. We did status on our board membership. We are in need of a faith member and an education member. Cheryl Erb was the education member, and she is now going on to another board. So we're reviewing and discussing to replace those 2 members of the board. We reviewed the bylaws. and approved original, what we had, and we also did the FMC ECI policies, and we reviewed the current policies, and we had action, and we carried, so they're staying the same. And that's my 3 meetings. Stan?
Okay, we have 5 minutes, so we gotta,
I have no meetings, but 2 things. One, how much savings again was that going to be for Alan?
oh,
721,000.
721,000. That's good. The other thing is, with the bond market going way down, and I realized that, and I was going to ask when Adam was here and I forgot it. I think they have 3 outstanding notes, county conservation. And this might be a time that we should talk quick to Jeff Heil to see if they can't be consolidated and quite a bit of,
yeah.
again, the savings made for county conservation. So if you folks have no problem with that, I will get a hold of
Great idea.
Jeff Heil, and if necessary, we might have to have a special board meeting, but we could sure do that.
Excellent.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
Okay?
I want to make the comment too that next week we'll have to keep our agenda short because NIAC's going to be voting here.
So
But I
they'll go
see,
in,
No, we just go in
the break room.
oh, we'll meet in the break room, okay. And then apparently we do have to have, I think Chris Olson probably contacted you of something to put on, okay, for next week's agenda. And manure management, Lowell.
Yeah, 3 of them. Griffith Finisher Farm, 3160 Walnut Avenue Orchard. Jen Ray's site, 4672 Glass Avenue, St. Ansgar. And Thorson South Farm, tip 10, 4255 40th Street, Cresco.
Okay, any public comments on anything? Yes, Larry.
The VA commission had looked at getting a van, and we had determined previously that there was not the need for it. A van can be leased, however, it's a long process to getting approvals. It gets approved in Des Moines, has to go to Division 23, which is Minneapolis, and then go to Washington to get the final approval. It can take 18 months. Depends if GSA has run out of money. If there's something out there, it could be a used one. They do not have any vans that are equipped to lift wheelchairs and so forth. The reason that there's a liability on that. To lease a van right now is about $3,000 a year. You have to have it to be active 12 days out of the month or 10,000 miles a year.
Those are all good things to know, because one of the counties I was told to contact, I think they might do leasing, but I suspect they're a lot bigger than us.
Yeah, there's one county, I'm not Henry County, but
Hardin, maybe?
Hardin County.
Yeah.
Pocahontas County's got 564 veterans. They don't have a van. The van utilization out of Mason City is approximately 1.5 people per trip. September, they made 15 trips.
Is that through Nyakog or something else?
Pardon me?
Who's that through?
That's out of Mason City, their van.
Out of, oh, with the vets, you mean?
Yeah.
Literally? Okay.
They had 25 riders in November, they made 13 trips. So roughly 2 people. December, they had 11 riders and 7 trips. January, they had 18 riders and 10 trips. The van utilization is going down. It's harder and harder to get volunteers. Mason City, I believe, got 6 volunteers. They run 4 days a week. There was an article on KIMT about Mason City not helping the veteran or going early for the veteran. They go based upon the traffic that comes out of around Ames into Des Moines, that's terrible. 30 minutes can make a lot of difference in the traffic. So they didn't go for an 8:30 appointment.
Maybe
You
it'll
know-
be a case of, with
Pardon me?
with all these things that need to come together, maybe it'll be a case of just helping out by hiring Renee's Loving Care or something to take people.
Well, there's one thing that one county does. They will pay a volunteer 50 cents a mile to run a veteran. But we're 2.5 hours from Des Moines, approximately the same time out to Minneapolis. Voluntary Services has never sent a van to Minneapolis. However, they did said if we got a lease van, they would let it go to Minneapolis.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have to cut off now because we have a meeting that is planned
Okay.
for 10 o'clock. That's all good information,
Why
Larry.
don't you stop up? Or
Yes.
Stop up and
Yes, those are all, and I may do my calling around first and then stop in sometime and see you.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
No, you just.
Or- We're just gonna,